So looking at that Ginsberg poem once again, from the point of view of the conversation in letters between Jacques Rivière and Antonin Artaud, it was the nakedness of the lunch that offended Jacques Rivière, and his reason for failing to publish those early little poems of Artaud's. And it was the nakedness, in some sense, of the lunch that Artaud was so willing to engage in dispute regarding and to challenge as the proof of his absolute reality, as he says in the exchange. And for the work that I produced, I was aware that the uneaten sandwiches would result, in discussion and some kind of justification in the same way that there was discussion and justification on the part of Jacques Rivière in his letters, denying a place in his literary journal to Artaud. And so, in a certain sense, I could play out the role of Artaud in observing, the criticism of the piece and watching the refusal, to eat the sandwiches. And of course, a lot of my peers in this art production class failed even to conceive that it was possible to eat these sandwiches. Now, I wouldn't produce a work like this today. I mean, and one of the reasons is because I have almost, I've so thoroughly exhausted my investment in Artaud that I've, moved on to other issues, but not out of interest, certainly. I spent years working with certain kinds of material that were inspired by his work, and then, research around the conditions of individuals who suffer the kinds of human indignities that he was made to suffer in the name of, good, healthy, clothed sandwiches. So I certainly haven't hidden away the madness, even though, in some sense I've exhausted the possibilities of working with Artaud. But the idea of the consumption of reality, or sanitized version of reality, is something that I still work with, and I can think about this in a lot of ways. So anytime a work ends up in a museum, it's judged to be a good, healthy, and, well, if not healthy, tasty and elaborate, version of what a sandwich should be. And things that don't end up in museums are unconsumed, and consumption, applies to the theater as well. Some pieces end up on Broadway, and they're relished and consumed readily, whereas others, either are rejected by venues like that, or themselves reject those venues, and perhaps even question the idea of such consumption. So eating as consumption, is something that I'm certainly still interested in. And that being said, I've recently been looking at, touching upon, really, not looking at in depth, but hinting at a discussion of the history of museum as colonial space. And once again, I'm being interrupted by my dogs, who are demanding to come in the house. So I'll let them in, and I'll get back to this discussion of the colonializing functions of the museum space. So in addition to being critical of museums and other venues and theaters of cultural consumption that steal cultural artifacts, either from Egypt or from Native America, or from African American intangible cultural forms, such as the blues. I've also been critical of certain kinds of rejections of these naked sandwiches or naked lunches, I suppose, particularly those that occur in a great or genius artist's lifetime. Artaud was very much aware of this kind of rejection as well, as is evident in his publication of an essay called Van Gogh, the Man Suicided by Society. And it's not only in this particular essay that he refers back to Van Gogh, but throughout his literary career and in his notebook journals, he makes, passing reference to the exploitation of and use of Van Gogh's work, and the fact that he died in abject poverty without ever having sold or made a profit, from his masterpieces. And the parallelism in Artaud's own career isn't lost on him, and hence the engagement with Jacques Rivière, which is, in a sense, a refusal to submit to the cultural judgment of becoming a clothed sandwich or some other metaphor that would have been apt in Artaud's case. And the final piece, the final radio piece that he does perform, many of his theater events were abandoned or lost, and part of the Alfred Neumann living theater experience was to recover some of that work that Artaud had planned on producing, but ultimately failed to realize. For example, at one point, part of that theater involved my writing an approximately 100-page essay on the approximately 3-page script for a play to be performed by the Alfred Jarry Theater called Le Jet de Sang, or The Jet of Blood. I don't think very many people recall that essay. It was never published in an academic journal. The one individual in critical theater culture who might recall the piece is perhaps František Deák, who commented on it at one point. But in any case, the length of my investigation of Artaud's theatrical principles applied to this work, never realized in his lifetime, was part of the way that this theater imagines the engagement with an audience and the recovery of certain lost working processes, not lost artifacts, as a kind of homage to the memory of Artaud and the Alfred Jarry Theater. So this idea, and in fact, I've experienced similar dynamic with my work, although in certain respects I've been aware of having made that choice, from the outset, a refusal to put my sandwiches in places where they could be purchased and that profit would go to institutions and corporations and businesses, and at the same time, even even having made the choice, one feels the pains and pangs of rejection in the same way that Van Gogh must have felt, or that Artaud, obviously felt, or wouldn't have produced these works. But I was about to refer to the last final realized work of Artaud's, to have a theater play called To Have Done with the Judgment of God. And that, of course, resonates with the judgment of Jacques Rivière early in Artaud's career. So God becomes the publisher. And publishers can be weird things for a writer or a poet. Without going too far into the story of my own publications, I've had publishers ask if corrections need to be made in the presentations of my work, and I've informed them of errors, but then the communications have gone uncorrected. My name has been misspelled. I've let publishers know that, and corrections have been failed to be made in those mistakes. And I had one publisher claim that he needed my social security number. I assume that this publisher is, some sort of this publisher that asked for my social security number. In fact, I gave it to him to see what the results would be. And it's a bit horrifying in a way who some of these individuals. But in any case, this was another aspect of the way that I wanted to present those sandwiches in terms of their consumption and rejection. And somehow the death of an artist always makes their sandwiches, much more pleasant, and makes the museums much more eager to consume their work. So thinking about, all of this, and thinking about Van Gogh or Antonin Artaud or others, recently, an artist by the name of David Baptiste Chiraut passed away, and I imagine that his etchings and drawing poems on paper will soon, become collections in a variety of museums, and probably increase in volume. Collectors will make considerable profit on them, and even though, again, Chiraut, died in, perhaps not poverty, but relative poverty, and certainly in pain. So I thought about, as an artist whose work has been thus far largely unconsumed by publishers and publications, and certainly never, and those publishers who have consumed the work certainly never paid me a dime for the use of my work, but also completely unconsumed by the space of museums, British or otherwise, I thought that I would take this work to the museum, since I have been looking at certain aspects of museums lately. So, as part of this project, I visited certain museums online, and I took a look at their menus if these museums had restaurants attached to them or inside of them somewhere. So I went to MoMA in New York, and I looked at the menu, and another reason why I wouldn't do the sandwich piece again in the same Artodian way is because I would be somewhat horrified by having to buy a beef tongue. I'm definitely a vegetarian now and have been for some years, and largely vegan, although I cheat with cheese and butter and certain kinds of things often. But I went to these museum restaurant menus, and this is MoMA's, and the only sandwich that I would be able to purchase in MoMA is a marinated portobello and pickled red onion on ciabatta sandwich, and that would cost me $13. And then you add a drink. Well, they want you to drink alcohol, but I don't drink alcohol, and I noticed they have different kinds of names for their alcohol. Here's one that's very orientalized. 6-Point Bengal Tiger. That's a beer that costs $9. Well, I wouldn't drink a tiger. I don't eat animals or drink them. But if I were going to combine it with a beer, it would cost me $13 plus $9, so $22. But I don't drink beer, so the bag of chips doesn't really seem worth $4, but it's a museum, and a bag of chips in a museum takes on greater value because of the justification of the value that the museum lends to the object inside of it. Caramelized onion dip, surprisingly cheap, must be small serving. Dried fruit and nut mix, which you get free even on an airplane that overcharges you for everything, would cost you $6. I could eat that, but for $6 I would rather go hungry. Snack Dragon apple. I don't know what that is. It's $1.50. It may just be, I think it's just an apple for $1.50. A banana is $1.50. Croissant, $5 for a croissant. Well, I'm already having a sandwich. I don't need that. Coffee, $4 for coffee. That's interesting. You used to be able to buy a really, really decent beer for $4 in almost any restaurant. Decaf coffee, same price, $4. English tea is $3. English breakfast tea. I'm not a really super big fan of the British teas. I like rooibos a lot, and green tea is all right, but for $3, I'd really have to think about it. And I don't drink anything carbonated, so none of that. Fruit juice, $4 for iced tea. Well, I'll either go for the coffee for $4 or I'll have that green tea for $3. I'm not sure, so I think I'm rejecting the rest, and that brings me up to, with the $13? Yeah, with the $13 sandwich and perhaps a coffee, I'll get out of there with, if they serve it to me at the table, I'll have to pay a tip. So that's $20 plus a $4 tip. So I'll get out of there for about $24. I hope that's a good sandwich. All right, then I went over to the LA County Museum. Let's see, veggie burger. I could do that, but okay, now that does not sound appealing to me at all. Beyond Meat, and it's a trademark. Well, the radical copyright violation theater won't allow me to eat the Beyond Meat without actually producing an ironic piece about it. And I've got too many things on my plate to worry about Beyond Meat right now. So I'm going to skip that one just because I guess I'm lazy. I'd have to make more art. That actually sounds pretty good. Thai tofu peanut butter sandwich. All right. So peanut butter, roasted cashews, cucumber, mint, cilantro. You say basil or basil? Tofu, homemade. I don't know this word. Shuraka? I'm not sure. Shurika? That one's hard to pronounce for me, and it looks, it's challenging for a dysgraphic, I'll tell you that much. I believe this is a kind of hot sauce. Oh, maybe not, because then it's followed with lime chili sauce. So that would be, or is that one noun phrase that begins homemade shuraka, comma, lime chili sauce? I'm not sure about the function of this comma. If this is separating this item and this item, or if this is somehow they thought that this noun phrase was too long and they needed to split it up with a comma, although I don't see that it is. Obviously that they're not German language speakers. In any case, I would get this, and this is a little thing that either looks like it means hot or vegan, perhaps. I can't really tell. I don't know what that is. It's red, so it could be hot or it could be vegan. Oh, here's a key. Vegan and vegetarian. Yes, that is indeed vegan. So that's our choice. And then let's see if they have a beverage that we can afford. Not having one's work in the institution, limits one's economic resources as well. So again, you have to. Oh, the beer is cheaper here. It was $9 in New York, and in LA it's $5. I assume that's a beer. Stumptown cold brew. Well, maybe not. No, I don't know. I don't really know if that's a beer or not. I would assume that it's a beer. They have more variety. A lot of sodas I won't drink. See how much their coffee is. They have coffee? I'm not seeing it. Sodas. Bottled water. I don't know why I would drink bottled water when I could drink tap water. I don't know. I might get the Martinelli's apple juice, or I might just skip the beverage altogether. All right. Then I went over to the San Diego Museum of Art. Oh, I love good dogs too. Panama 66 menu. I can't understand the names of places in San Diego anymore, like Little Italy and these things that never existed in my day. Wow, they have a lot of alcohol here. So, must be expensive. A lot of this stuff, the prices are listed. Maybe local beer. Maybe they have one price for all the local beer. I can't even see it. Maybe it's seasonal beer, and They have to price it for you as you go in. Wow, the wine is extraordinarily expensive. I've never seen these rather poor sounding wines priced so extravagantly. If I drank still, I would go to Bevmo and sneak in a good bottle of something. Also, they have drinks named after artists. Wow, I can't even find the food here. Okay, here we go. Sandwiches and burgers. Park burger, because it's Balboa Park, right? Grilled cheeseburger. Oh, here we go. Tempeh and winter squash. So, $12. That's about right for museum food. Smoky San Diego tempeh. I wonder what makes it San Diego tempeh. Made in San Diego, perhaps? It's not San Diego winter squash. Pepita creamless bread, mixed greens, apple cider vinaigrette on toasted seedy sourdough. Vegan. Okay, so that's obviously my choice. Choose one side, fries or mixed greens. I'm gonna choose the fries. That sounds really good. And then let's see, do they have any beverages that are non-alcoholic? I don't see any. I guess you have to be an alcoholic if you, oh, here we go. All right, so coffee, I probably wouldn't generally jump at a coffee that was $2.50, but the fact that it was $4, where was that, at MoMA? Makes it more engaging. So I'll probably just have the coffee and tea collection. I guess we have to ask about that. Ginger beer is sparkling, so I wouldn't drink that. Yeah, I think it will probably just be bear's knees. I just did a piece on bear's knees. I wonder if they even know what bear's, no, I did a piece on bear's ears, didn't I? So, bear's knees. I'm trying to think. I know this expression. Bear's knees is kind of interesting. I know bear's ears. Oh, it's funny. Recently, on one of the poetry blogs, Phil Reese's Mod Po, there was a discussion of mishearing as an aspect of poetic deciphering, and I just had a misreading up here, and I had posted a response to it that suggested that our mishearings and misreadings were in some ways always examples of Freudian slips, and they were largely defined by the context of our experience. This is Dine In, Panama 66, but I read it as Dine In, Panama 66. All right. So that'll be, what was that? $12 plus the $2.50, so around 16 with tax, and then so we'll get out of this particular museum for less than $20 for a sandwich. That's pretty good. All right, so finally, against my better judgment, I visited the British Museum. Everything in England is great, right? Everything so this is the Great Court, like the court of the Crimson Restaurant. Oh, currently closed. I guess we'll have to forego a sandwich in the Great Court Restaurant of the British Museum of Antiquities and other stolen artifacts.